Men and women all over the globe are joining now for the best videos on the internet.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
And I'm doing my part too.
They're doing their part. Are you? Click the subscribe button now to become a member of the Action Pack. Would you like to know more?
Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Mike and with me today is...
Other Mike.
Power over spice is power over all. This is Mike's After Action Reviews and this is the After Action Review for Dune Part 2. I love my awesome Support the Troops Stormtrooper mug. Do you know where you can get a mug just like this one, but different? Bottega Krua. Bottega Krua is an Italian born and raised artisan trained at the Academy of Fine Arts in Venice, Italy. Since 2010, Bottega Krua has offered unique handmade and hand-painted ceramics, pottery, and other artistic products. You can find these products at her Etsy store by following the link down below. She also takes custom orders, but they may take longer to ship because she has to make them after you order them. So, go check out Bottega Krua to get yourself an awesome mug just like this one or the ones you've been seeing behind me as this ad has been going on. Remember guys, supporting our partners is supporting the pack, the Action Pack. So as always guys, we are going to start with the movie's production. I have my notes to keep me on track. I have my guest looking beautiful as always, and we have the trailers will be playing over here soon. We'll be watching over here. This is where we're going to have all of our pictures and all of that stuff. So currently, as we're recording this, we don't see anything but a black square. So starting off, now you and I have talked about this a couple of times with the production companies. If there's all of these production companies and all of these writers, it tends to be that there's usually some problems. So so there was two more production companies than we're about to name, but I think that they were just for distribution. They weren't actually involved in making the movie.
Okay.
So yeah, they were. I looked it up on IMDb and it was like distribution. So and then also there are only two writers. So that looks good for the film. For everybody who's new to Mike's After Action Reviews and watching this, we talk about the production to give you an idea of basically, like thinking about it as we already saw the movie, but if we hadn't seen the movie and we saw these people that as being part of the production, what would we have thought? Like, oh, is this going to be good or is it going to be bad? Or when we do our reviews at the end, was it as good as the production companies could have made based on their past and how good a quality of movies they make? So think about those things while we go through this. So the first production company was Legendary Entertainment, which is most well known for Dune from 2021, which is the first movie in this Dune series of movies. And then also they were most recently they did the Book of Clarence, from which came out in 2023. Now you're familiar with the Book of Clarence because we did the trailer reactions to that. That's the one where it's the guy who sees Jesus, and so he decides he wants to copy Jesus to become his own kind of Messiah or a Messiah-like character.
Right.
We didn't see that movie, but we did see Dune, and Dune was good. Dune was an excellent movie, and so I really liked it. Then we had Warner Bros. Entertainment, and they are most well known for American Fiction from 2023, and then most recently did Leave the World Behind, also in 2023. American Fiction was about a writer. I saw trailers for it. That's how I know what it is. It was about a writer who basically does, what do they call it when you talk differently to different people? It's called something shift. He basically would write, and people said that he wrote too white, and he was a black guy. He wrote too white, so he started to write his books in basically Ebonics, and the book started selling, and everybody was so happy because it's like this black writer, and it basically is making fun of the idea. It's kind of making fun of the idea of the way that certain white people try to do this all like, I'm privileged and we need to uplift black people. It's like, why don't you just shut up and accept the fact that I'm a good writer instead of being a good black writer?
Right.
Yeah, so
Right.
I didn't see the movie, but that was like the premise, and it seemed interesting. And then Leave the World Behind was kind of, I didn't watch it all, but it's kind of like a post-apocalyptic, the city, or at least I think it's the whole United States gets cyber attacked, and that one was produced by the Obamas, so there's kind of some political, people are like, oh, this is gonna be kind of a political movie. I imagine, I don't know. I didn't see the movie, but there was speculation about what it was going to be like, and so I haven't seen it. If you guys have, let us know in the comments section down below if it's worth checking out for ourselves. And then also, Villeneuve Films was the last production company, and the only things that Villeneuve Films has made was Dune from 2021, and then I do just want to let you guys know that they have been slotted to make a TV show called Dune Prophecy. It's on IMDb right now as being in the works of being made. So, yeah, I mean, what did you think? What are your thoughts on just the production companies that we've covered in some of the properties so far?
Well, the two of them have done tons of movies. I mean, I don't really know of any. You got some heavy hitters up. You went with the big guns and people who could do movies well and have done them well. And so there's probably, if you're going to bet on it, you're probably going to say it's probably going to be a pretty good production with those particular, at least the first two.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of movies. I would say there's a lot of movies that have these particular production companies and stuff like that. So,
yeah, and I will say, like, Villeneuve is the director, Denis Villeneuve, and his production company being involved in this is just like, that's, yeah, like they were. I've seen some other stuff from him, like Blade Runner, and we'll get into what he's done. But just that, like, seeing that production company now going forward, I'm going to say, like, as soon as I see that, I'm going to be like, well, it's probably going to be good, so we need to go see it. Because the way that everything is done here, and we'll get into and at the end here, we'll kind of talk about production as a whole. But yeah, I think that this was a good setup and high production value, and then we'll talk about how they actually did. So, yeah, moving on to the writers, we have, so the top billed writer for this one is, I'm pretty sure that it's Denis. It's Denis, but he's French, so it's not, I don't think it's Dennis, it's Denis. So Denis Villeneuve, and he's most well known for Dune from 2021, and he most recently did, other than that and this, was Incendies from 2010. And then the second writer was John Spates. He's most well known for Prometheus. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I didn't like Prometheus. Do you remember Prometheus and what was it, Alien Covenant? I didn't like those movies so much. I mean, like, I thought that they were okay, but as far as being alien movies, I was like, I don't like this so much. But he wrote that, and that was from 2012. And then he also wrote Dune for 2021 as well. So
right.
I think that John Spates, he wrote also, like, it wasn't his top one or his most recent one, but he did Doctor Strange. So, like, he's a good writer. I was just saying, like, Prometheus I wasn't a big fan of, but yeah, that's fine. Then like I said, so Denis Villeneuve, he's written some really good stuff as well. So as far as the writers, I actually think that they did a pretty good job. And there's only two. Usually there's like a huge long list of writers and I pick the top three. This one only gave me two, which is a good sign. Every time that I see that there's like one writer or two writers, or even 3 is okay, you know. But whenever I see a movie that's got like 8 writers or 6 writers, I'm like, because usually what that means is that the production company had a problem, like the studio had a problem with something that was being written, so they brought in another person. And then and then when you start to get like into like 6 or 7 or 8 writers, that means that the person that they brought in they didn't like, and so they brought in another person to replace that person. So, this has just got all of the what do you call it? It's like a green flag, all the markers for a good movie so far.
Right.
And like I said,
no red flags.
Yeah, I didn't see Incendies from Denis Villeneuve, but I did see the first Dune, and we really liked that. I saw Prometheus. So of the two, like Prometheus and Alien Covenant, I think Prometheus was okay. Sorry, I said I didn't like Prometheus. Actually, I thought the Prometheus was okay. I didn't like Alien Covenant. Excuse me. That was the issue. I didn't like Alien Covenant because of what they did with, like, replacing the alien queen and kind of the established origins with this black goo. I thought that was it wasn't for me.
Right.
So then we've got the director. So there was one director, Denis Villeneuve. So aside from his writing credits that we just talked about, he's credited for directing Dune from 2021, and then also did Blade Runner 2049 in 2017. Did you see Blade Runner?
Yeah, I've seen both of them actually.
Yeah. Did you like Blade Runner?
It was okay. I mean, I don't know. The first one I remember more vividly than the second one was good too. I mean, they had Harrison Ford in it, but
so,
I thought it was an okay movie. I'm not saying it was bad or anything like that. It was an okay movie.
So well, I'll say about 2049 is that 2049 was a big budget, production movie, and so they were able to do the CGI and have the great music and all that stuff. Okay, and that's one, and we're gonna get into the music here in a second, but that's one where I remember if you played for me the music that they played, I don't know the name of the song, but like the big song that they kept playing in Blade Runner 2049. I remember that music. Like if you played it for me and said, "What movie is this?" I'd be able to say, "Oh, that's Blade Runner 2049." So I really like the music. But the thing is that, and we've talked about this before, and it's always worth mentioning, so I'm going to bring it up again, is that when you have a good director, good directors have this ability to take something is like an insignificant interaction. When you have like a scene, like something's happening in a scene, and they'll take an insignificant interaction or an insignificant moment in like if somebody's alone, something that they're doing, and they place the camera in the right way. They have the right, they do stuff with the audio to make the audio sound a certain way. They tell the actor to act a certain way. And it's like, this guy, I'm watching this scene of a guy waking up in the morning and brushing his teeth and getting ready for the day. But the way that it's directed, the music that's playing in the background, the way that the actor is being told to act makes me interested in this. Or something insignificant, like scenes of landscapes during movies, like where you'll see people walking or something, like let's say some people go on a journey, like in Lord of the Rings. There's scenes where you see these people walking and it's just them walking, but the music that's playing is upbeat, like da-da-dun, dun, 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 and it'll show a panning shot of them, and it'll just be them walking, but you're like, yeah, I'm ready for this journey. And it's like, yeah, okay. So Denis Villeneuve, I'm going to tell you that he's one of those directors that, for me anyway, when I see it, I know like there's going to be moments in this where it's just going to be good just because of the direction and the directing that's given and that. So, I think that's great. I just want to give him his due. So
he also directed Prisoners, which is it was a while ago, but I really liked that movie. And when you started talking about how how you direct, even not the main, even the minor parts you direct to make it interesting, you're filling the gaps with something that kind of keeps your attention throughout the movie. That was a really good movie. I really liked that movie. I would watch it again. I would even say that I liked it better than Blade Runner, but
Okay.
I don't think it got the notoriety that a lot of other movies got. But it's a good movie.
So I did see that one. So that's Prisoners from 2013. One second, it's 2013. With Jake Gyllenhaal and Hugh Jackman. Great movie. It also had Paul Dano as kind of the bad guy, but he's not exactly the. Well, you have to watch the movie to find out. It's a pretty good movie. Go check it out. Yeah, no, exactly though. Exactly. It's being able to capture something even in. Being able to capture something even in the insignificant, quote unquote, insignificant movies. That
movie wasn't a sci-fi movie, but it was about real life and about a possibility of something happening, and I think he did well with. I mean, it shows his diversity. That wasn't sci-fi, but that was more like a thriller or a mystery or something like that. I'm going to look at it, and then this one's sci-fi, and he's done the same thing with a whole different genre. So that to me is I like that. The fact that your person is not just can only do one thing well. I mean, he can do it well in different venues and stuff like that. So
yeah,
he did a good job.
I just want to comment and say, like, so for the Prisoners, the movie, my favorite part of the movie is the ending. And it's not, I'm not spoiling anything, but my favorite part of the movie is that something happens, and one of the characters is, I'll just say, one of the characters is not going to be found. They're kind of trapped in this situation that's bad, and they're not going to be found. And then Jake Gyllenhaal, he plays a cop, and he's walking around, and he's the movie's kind of winding down and over, and you're like, okay, that character who is trapped in that situation, they're probably might even be dead now, like whatever happened. And then all of a sudden, in the end, you hear this little whistle sound, and then the movie ends, and you're like. And Jake Gyllenhaal's character, you see him, and he kind of goes like, and then the movie ends. And I'm like, that was so good. I hope that the character who's trapped got found. So in my eyes, in my mind, they did. Mm-hmm. But I really liked, as far as the writing and directing of that, and even the acting with Jake Gyllenhaal and the way that he reacts to it, I was like, this is good. Yeah, that's one of those moments where it's like, it's just such a cool thing. Yeah, so go experience it for yourself. Check it out. Prisoners, it is a good movie. It is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so okay, so that's Denis Villeneuve. We're singing his praises here because he really is something special in kind of an ocean of mediocrity. He is something special. Okay, so then the music was by Hans Zimmer. He's most well known for Gladiator from 2000. And he also most recently did The Creator from 2023. Now, he did do the music from the first one. I thought that it was somebody else. I didn't realize that. What did you think of the music in this? Now, I always, going over this, so for people who haven't seen my movie reviews before, I'm going to ask a question that kind of is going to sound insulting to the music here, but actually, basically, when it comes to music for movies, it's like, so amazing that you'll never forget it, like the Harry Potter theme song, Lord of the Rings, The Avengers. Okay, you remember those immediately when they come on. You go, oh, that's the Avengers song. Okay, and then even if it's really good, most often it'll be, I don't remember it. It's fine, But even if the music is really good, you won't necessarily remember it. So, was this the really awesome I remember it, or was it the I don't remember it?
I probably don't remember that well because I kind of expected it to be similar to the first one. That's probably why I don't. It's not. Okay. I'm not saying it was bad. It was good music, and there was nothing that was like annoying or anything like that. It was fine. I mean, it was fine for the film and everything like that. But I mean,
So are you saying you wouldn't be able to differentiate it from the first one? Or are you saying that?
I kind of feel that way.
Okay,
I mean,
because I will say like one.
similar style.
Yeah, no. Well, I was just gonna say. So the one that I'll always remember whenever they play it now is that I'm not gonna be able to do it, but I'm gonna do it. So for everybody on YouTube, leave a comment and you can laugh at me. But where the woman goes like, and then it like drops the drum, the beat drops, and then and that's whenever it opens to the desert, and usually it's like the sun rising over the desert. You see the woman. I can't do it, but whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever song that is, I thought I'll always remember that.
You definitely can't do it, but fine.
Yeah, but I will say, I mean, that was in the first one. That was in the first one as well. So.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of that. I don't know, maybe like a Middle Eastern type cry out. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Those are cool when they do that, especially like when the sun is dawning or something like that. And yeah.
Yeah, but I'll tell you that's the only song, and then the rest of the music for it, I thought it was really good and everything. I didn't, and as a reviewer who looks over this, I'm always looking for it, but there's not like a particular beat that I could like, because sometimes I'll do like where I'll say, oh, Lord of the Rings, dun 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 dun, like I know that,
Yeah.
So, but I don't nothing from this that I could go back. But Hans Zimmer, he did a good job. I'm going to give it, the thumbs up. I'm just going to say that it's not like some great thing where it's catchy and you're going to remember it. So, okay, so then going over the production overall, especially with this movie, I've got to say that the production was very important and really great. I don't know how much of this they actually filmed on scene, like in a desert, or how much of it was CGI, but I've got to say, the production value here was really important for this because the CGI had to be great to make this work. Not because of the story itself is like reliant on CGI like you would think of in superhero movies and stuff like that, but just because you kind of get sucked in and captured by the scenery, sort of like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And it creates an atmosphere, and the music was wonderful all the time. It's just perfectly the way that it lines up with what's going on in the movie. The big wide shots of the desert are so cool, and being able to have the costume design, like I said, it's not just making a movie for you to see, it's creating a world for you to experience.
Right.
Yeah, and that all goes in the production value, and I think they did a good job. I will say this, like Legendary Entertainment are named, Warner Brothers Entertainment are named, but I think that mostly this was by Villeneuve himself, and then they just paid for everything. So
right,
yeah.
Some of the scenes. I knew one of the scenes. I don't think I'm giving it away, but it's the desert by the ocean, and I'm like, okay, that's Namibia. I know, I've seen that before. I know what that is. Yeah, so that was pretty cool, and I think there's some other. I think they did some scenes actually in some pretty deserty places and stuff like that.
Yeah. Like
so,
when you see that shot. When you see that shot of Gidi Prime from space, I want to know how much money and how long it took them to build a space shuttle to launch and go to Gidi Prime to get that picture. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
I'm kidding. That's good.
It's real desert and stuff like that. Even when I was deployed twice, people like, oh, you were in Iraq, it was desert. It was like, well, yeah, but it's not like Saudi Arabia or something like that, where it's these big dunes of sand. I mean, they spent some time really finding some good locations to make it look very much like the book and the previous one. So that was cool. I like that.
Did you read the book?
No, I didn't read the book. I need to read the book because I think that, but not reading the book, I'm probably lacking, with knowing it as well. I might actually be more critical of it and stuff like that. So it's pretty thick, isn't it? I mean, it's like a really
so there's many
large
books. The first book itself, I don't think is too long or anything.
Okay.
There are a lot of books.
Okay, it's a series. Got it. I thought it was one large book. That somebody maybe the one it was one with several different books in it.
Yeah, it has 896 pages. That's not bad. I mean, it's like a good book, but it's like not. It's like normal, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually. Yeah, that'd take a while to get through that. Unless it's easy read. I don't know if it's easy read or not. Depends.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'd have to read it.
Well, and that's actually, I'll tell you, that's a credit to the movie. It's a credit to the so Lord of the Rings. I read the Silmarillion. Well, no, I didn't read the Silmarillion. I started listening to the Silmarillion on audio tape, which is not the Lord of the Rings, but it's books by Tolkien that are about his world, kind of before the Lord of the Rings. And then I started reading the Lord of the Rings, like the Fellowship of the Ring. Okay, and that book is it's great, but it's just not for me because it's very wordy, you know. And I remember I got to a few pages in, and I'm like, this guy has described him getting up and putting his shoes on, him getting up and putting his jacket on, how he cooks his eggs, how he makes his bacon, how much bacon he ate, how he looked out the window and saw the birds chirping on the windowsill. And I'm like, look, I love it, it's great, but this is like the perfect book to be made into a movie, because then they just take all that stuff and they use it as descriptors for the scenes. But it is not the book that I want to read. So it's really wordy. It's hard. It's a little bit of a harder read. But I will say, I love the Lord of the Rings so much that it's a credit to the movies that I wanted to read that. You know, I wanted to read it. I didn't finish the book, but it's a credit to this movie that you look at it and you go, you know, actually, I would love to read this book, and so that's really awesome. It's great to hear you say that.
Yeah. Well, there's something about a book that was written in 1965 that it didn't just go right into a movie. It took a while before it kind of, I don't know, it was like kind of in a crock pot cooking until it was ready to somebody come along and make a movie of it. So I mean, there's been some movies made of it, there've been some series made of it, but it wasn't right away. You know, I remember the first one was Sting, the singer, in it, and yeah. But that wasn't. I mean, that was quite a ways after when it was written and stuff.
Yeah, so 1984, and I'll tell you, yeah, I definitely agree. I think that, and the thing, yeah, a lot of people don't realize that this is like the original thing. So a lot of the stuff that you see in Star Wars, a lot of the stuff that you see, you know, like Tremors, the worms from Tremors are inspired by the worms from Dune. A lot of the stuff originated here. So this was an interesting thing. This is an interesting piece of sci-fi in that Frank Herbert invented a lot of these ideas.
Right. A lot of influence on other sci-fi.
Yeah. So anyway, excellent. Before we get into some of the, because we're going to start, this is going to lead us into some other things. I just want to say, yes, 2 thumbs way up for production. This is like right on right in line with stuff like Lord of the Rings, and Lord of the Rings is the biggest one that I can think of. Like The Matrix is more of an action film, but still that's great production value as well. So like this is like the stuff, man. This is cutting edge of cinema as far as the production value.
Hi, it's Travis with Oscar Mike Radio.
Resting places of many departed.
Oscar Mike Radio is a military and veterans podcast and show about those who serve our country and those who have served and are doing amazing things.
You know what? Let's take more. And then they had that fantastic...
It's managing those logistics and getting things where they need to be on time.
I mean, come on.
Want to learn more? Want to follow the show? Go to OscarMikeRadio.com or the link below. We're Oscar Mike, and we're mission in flight. Thank you.
So let's get into the plot here. So, first things first, in the beginning of us doing movie reviews, I would always say that I forget to mention the runtime, but now I've gotten better at it, so I don't forget this anymore, but I just wanted to give myself a pat on the back for that. But yeah, so 2 hours and 46 minutes, okay, was the movie runtime. Yep, so the IMDb plot summary is as follows. So there are two. One is from IMDb, and then one is actually was given to IMDb by Warner Bros. Pictures. So the first one reads like this. Paul Atreides unites with Chani and the Fremen while seeking revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family. Okay, and then the second one, this is from Warner Bros. Pictures, says, Paul Atreides unites with Chani and the Fremen while on a warpath of revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family. Facing a choice between the love of his life and the fate of the known universe, he endeavors to prevent a terrible future only he can foresee. So the second one is basically an extension of the first and gets a little bit into some other things. What did you think of the plot summary? And just for people who are new and how we do things here, the reason that we're reading the plot summary and talking about it is because this is what the production companies wanted you to see and know of the movie before going and seeing it. And so we talk about it because we want to know, like, did they lie to us? Did they represent the movie accurately? What did you think of the plot summary?
No, that was very accurate of what the movie was. I don't think there was nothing. I mean, it was broad enough to where you want to, you know what's going to happen. You kind of know what's going on, but not so detailed that you can, figure out. It's like when you see the clip for the movie that's going, and then you're like, I already figured out the movie. Why should I go watch it? I mean,
yeah,
it was a good summary, right to the point. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think of the story? So it's weird for me to talk about this because as I was writing this, like I haven't read the book, but I've seen the movie, the original movie, and so I already knew where certain things. It was a good. Go on.
Yeah, it was a good story, but when I started watching it, and I was like, I thought, you know what? I wish I had watched the first one before I came here, so because I had kind of forgotten, and so I'm trying to catch up throughout the movie. Oh yeah, that's where we're at. Okay, yeah, right. I'm kind of like remembering. I mean, I had like a little bit of amnesia going into it, but then I've kind of figured it out as I was going. So that's just me. I wish I would have watched the first one just to get get rolling into this next. Yeah. Just get like a preemptive strike on this movie, but yeah, I mean it was good. I mean, once I started realizing what was going on and stuff like that, it was good. But again, that's why I said back a while ago, I said, well, maybe reading the books I might have a better understanding, a little deeper understanding of what's going on. So, but I think that's what a lot of books are like that. Or a lot of movies are made from books. There's probably a deeper, more details, like you were saying with the Hobbit, or where they're getting into really deep details. He scratched his nose, and
right.
put on his socks, Yeah.
Well,
so,
and I
don't think Dune's like that, but
so yeah, I don't think that this gets like really, really deep into it. But I will say that I think there's one series that I started to read, and I used to be, now I'm not so much, but when I was in high school, I was an avid reader, and then when I deployed, like when I went to Turkey while I was in the military, I had this big like tough box, like it could fit a person in it. Okay, and it was just full of books, and I would just take books and read them, and then I was an avid reader, but not so much anymore because I'm so busy all the time. But anyway, there was one book, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I saw the movie, and it's a movie series, and it's so good. And then I picked up the book, and the book was, the first few chapters of the book are all about stock market trading, because so in the movie, you don't see it, but in the movie, before the movie starts, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo with Rooney Mara and the guy who plays in 007, whose name I can't remember right now.
Yeah, right.
So the first scene of the movie is actually after the first few chapters in the book, because what it's about is him reporting on and basically whistleblowing about some stocks that were traded and some shady business. But the book, the first like couple chapters or first chapter or something, is at least the first chapter is all about that stock market trading, and it is so boring. And so that was the one movie where I've heard people say the movie was better than the book. Because the detail,
Right.
you know, as far as how, like, it just presents all the information and you don't have all this boring stuff. Yeah, so I would say that this probably isn't like that. Like, the book is probably good, but I just wanted to comment, like, yeah, the book is usually better. I've only seen it one time where it's like, you might not want to read the book, even if you like the movie.
You know, one, like, talking about downrange is that I read a lot of the Grisham books, and then I saw the movies, and I thought they were pretty much the same. I you know, maybe little details here and there, but they were really, the books were really good, and then when they made the movies, they were really good too. So
You're saying
sometimes
Grisham,
they John Grisham.
okay, so I just looked him up and it says he's an American novelist, lawyer, and a former House of Representatives person. So The Firm, The Pelican Brief, The Client, A Time to Kill, The Chamber. Okay. The Rain Maker,
those are really the books and the movies are pretty, I think, pretty close. You know, of course, the book's a little longer, but
so for this, I'll say this: I didn't read the book, but I did watch the first movie. Okay, and so first of all, I'm kind of getting away from the idea. Just a second, I do just want to say I thought that the story was good. I thought the story was very good here. Okay, I watched the first movie, and I'll say that this covered a lot of the things in the first movie in a similar way, with a higher production value and some, you know, all the stuff that we've talked about so far.
Mm-hmm.
And it just brings it to life on screen so much. I'm one of the people that actually liked the original movie with Sting and Patrick Stewart. A lot of people didn't like it. I do. But there were some things that they missed and left out, and we'll talk about that in the miscellaneous section. But so what is presented here? That's what I was going to say. As far as the story, from the first movie in this series by Denis Villeneuve, they changed some things with Duncan, Idaho, and we talked about it in our first review. They changed things with Duncan, Idaho, which is Jason Momoa's character. In the original movie, he dies in the second time you see him in the movie. And then in the first movie with Denis Villeneuve, he spoiler alert, this is the second movie in the series, so if you want to see it, spoilers for the first. He sacrifices himself to save Paul. And it's so, and then there's this whole sequence with him flying a ornithopter. It's just so cool. The stuff that they did with him were great changes. They didn't. Mm-hmm. I can tell you from the first movie to this movie, they didn't make changes. Like, if you think about the original movie with Patrick Stewart and all of them, the first part, Dune Part 1 was changed a few things. Dune Part 2, that covers the second part of the story, they didn't really change a whole lot. They included some different things, but they didn't make anything explicit changes. They included some things with Fade and expanded on his character. But they didn't. And then they talked more about the Emperor and the Emperor, the Princess, but they didn't change things like they did with Duncan, Idaho.
Right.
So, and I was watching for that. The reason I mentioned it is because that's something that I was like, are they going to make some like exciting changes from the first movie? And they didn't, and that's fine. That's fine. They included some new things though that were good. But basically the story here, a big part of the story here. So there's two main things here, and that is Paul the savior? Now, even going into the movie, you already whether you've seen the original movie, whether you've read the books already, if you've watched the first movie with Denis Villeneuve, you're gonna know, yes, Paul is the savior. Oh, okay, Paul is this. The main character here is this prophesied savior. They make it basically pretty clear in the first movie. So that's kind of the question, though. It's one of those movieisms where it's like, we know that the bad guys are going to get beaten. We know that he's going to survive this unsurvivable test moving into it.
Right.
But so they still play that part out. Is Paul the savior? Okay. And we have other characters that either believe that he is or don't believe in him, and there are a bunch of different interesting interactions about that. So I thought that that's kind of the main thing. And then the other thing is fighting the Harkonnens and undermining the Emperor. Through fighting the Harkonnens, they slow down the production of spice, and then spice only comes from the planet Arrakis, and it's the most valuable resource. There's some things about spice that they don't get into in this movie, but they do get into in the original movie, and they obviously do in the book. But because of those things, the Emperor becomes concerned and kind of gets involved. So in what's going on Arrakis. So that's basically the whole thing with the plot. Again, I thought that everything was done pretty well here as far as the writing of the story. And anything else you want to say about it, though, before we move forward into characters and acting?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it was done well. I mean, I would agree with you on that. You know what? I feel like that I need to read the book before I see the next one that comes out. You know, there's something. Maybe they have Dune for Dummies that you can get a cheat sheet and go through.
Well, so I'll tell you the truth. I read the Wikipedia pages and stuff like that, or you know,
yeah.
I read like the lore of it, because you can find like maybe 2 or 3 web pages that'll explain to you everything that happens without you having to read the book. When I find stuff like that, like I don't have time to go back and read all the Dune stuff, but I've done some research to find out about what happens next and the lore of the world. So,
I mean, it's just a popular book that somebody wrote a series of books, and that just doesn't happen to every writer. You know, where they have a series like that. I mean, so this is like a phenomenon that's going to, like, you know, the Lord Terry's, you know, 1,000 years from now, people will be talking about Dune, you know?
Right.
It's like, you know, other books that are written by other people that have, you know, Mark Twain or something like that, they just don't come around all the time, you know? And yeah, it's that kind of book.
And when we're talking about the greatness of the book, I do just want to make it very clear, like the greatness of the first movie. I sat in the theaters and I actually got emotional, not necessarily because of the story that was being told in front of me, but just like you just said, that doesn't happen. We don't get movies like the first Dune, like at least Dune Part 1. We're going to talk about it Dune Part 2, but we don't get movies like Dune Part 1 anymore. And so it was so cool. I was sitting in that theater and I was getting sad, thinking this won't happen again for another 10, 15 years before we, you know, like Lord of the Rings. We're not going to get another Lord of the Rings probably ever. And that's considered one of the best movies ever made of any genre. And we're probably never going to see that again. Not in my lifetime. And so it's sad. It's almost sad as the final credits roll after the ring is destroyed and Frodo and everybody goes to the Undying Lands. And you think, man, I'm never going to see another story like this again, but I want one. I want another story like this. Yeah. So we'll get into some of that when we get in the miscellaneous section. So
my name is Stephen Russell. My co-writer, Joseph Miles Pittman, and I would like you to imagine a graphic narrative that disrupts the superhero genre's conventional boundaries. Tales of Nihilism unfolds a thought-provoking anthology with diverse story formats from succinct comic strips to multi-saga issues. But at its core, the Ballad of Philip Kirshner explores existential challenges of an ordinary man in a world inundated with superheroes. The anthology challenges prevailing hero worship narratives, diving deep into societal introspection. We invite readers to confront uncomfortable truths about our culture's obsession with saviors and question the prevailing societal structures. The series is not just a comic, but an invitation to contemplate, challenging readers to reassess their perspectives on heroism and societal norms. It's an opportunity to offer audiences a fresh, introspective take on the superhero universe, sparking conversations, reflections on the human condition. You can find the series digitally on Global Comics, or follow the links below to get your own physical issue.
But otherwise, let's move on to characters and acting then. So there are a lot of characters and actors, and I have listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I did 6. Usually I only do the top 5. We are going to miss out on some of the big named ones. Or not big name, but like the big named actors that played maybe smaller roles. So these are the top 6. These are the top 6 as I see them in their interaction with the story. We can talk about things that happened with the other ones as we move forward, maybe into the miscellaneous section as well. But let's start off. So starting off, we have Timothy Chalamet. He is most well known for Call Me by Your Name from 2017, and then most recently was in the musical movie. I have to mention that because it's not been advertised as a musical, but it is a musical. Wonka.
It is.
From 2023.
Man.
And he plays Paul Atreides. Okay. Then we have Zendaya. She is most well known for Spider-Man Homecoming from 2017, and also most recently did, and also has become very famous for the show, the TV series, Euphoria. She was in 18 episodes, and it ran. It's still going now, is my understanding. Like there's going to be another season, but that ran from 2019 to 2022, and she plays Chani. Then we have Rebecca Ferguson. She is most well known for The Greatest Showman from 2017, and most recently did Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 from 2023. And she plays Lady Jessica Atreides. We have Javier Bardem, who's most well known for Skyfall 2012, and most recently did The Little Mermaid in 2023, for which, by the way, I just want to let you guys know, I think that Javier Bardem is a great actor, but he was nominated for a Razzie Award for his performance in The Little Mermaid for how bad people say that he did in that movie. We're not comment. I'm
really?
not, you know, I don't really want to comment on The Little Mermaid as far as how bad he or how good he actually did in it, but he did get nominated for a Raspberry Award for his performance there. But in this movie, he plays Stilgar. And then we have Austin Butler. He's most well known for Elvis in 2022. And then he most recently did The Bike Riders in 2023. And he played Fade Rotha. So I don't know if the same guy who played Elvis in the movie Elvis played Fade Rotha.
I had to see what he looked like when I said, what does that guy look like in real life? And I was like, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, the transformation is quite, interesting. So then Christopher Walken, he's most famous for The Deer Hunter in 1978, and also most recently did Wild Mountain Thyme in 2020, time spelt with an H because it's the herb. That was in 2020, and here he plays the Emperor. Yeah, so I know, like I said, I know that we have other big named actresses and actors who are in this movie, but their parts were very small, and there was a lot. There were parts were smaller than these ones, so we'll go over these guys, and then at the end, especially in the miscellaneous section, if there's things you want to mention, we can still mention them.
Sure.
Yeah, but anyway, so Timothy Chalamet. So his character, Paul Atreides. Like I kind of said in the story part, is he the savior? We kind of have one of these situations where he goes from doubt and disinterest in being the savior. Think of like the Matrix, like Neo in the Matrix but he doesn't believe that he's the one. He doesn't want the power of the one. He doesn't want the responsibility, and neither does Timothy Chalamet's character, Paul Atreides. Excuse me, I gotta call him Paul Atreides because we're talking about the character now. So Paul Atreides. And I think that those are, and it's kind of alluded to here in the movie, is that people who don't want the power are the ones that probably should have it. And so we kind of get this back and forth conflicts and different things that happen because of, is he the savior? Isn't he the savior? Does he believe in himself? What's he going to do? And then also in this movie, it should be noted that like Paul is accepted into Fremen society. He is given a Fremen name, and the name they ask him like, what do you want to be called as a Fremen? And you know what? I had it pulled up, but then I changed the web page. Let me see what Paul's. Let me see Moadib.
Yeah, it's like a mouse, like a kangaroo mouse or something.
So Moadib is the Fremen name for the desert mouse found on planet Arrakis, and he says, I see the desert mouse and I want to be called after that mouse. And everybody laughs, but Stilgar, he's kind of the leader. He's the leader of the Fremen, this Fremen group, and he says, no, this is a wise name. because think about it. The mouse makes his own water. He's self-sufficient. He survives in the desert even though he's so small. And then he is given the name. So he chooses the name Muad'Dib. And then he chooses the name Usul. Or sorry, he's given the name Usul, which is a Fremen word meaning the strength of the base of the pillar. So Stilgar gives him this name because he says like you're very strong and you have all these different properties. So we will call you Muad'Dib Usul. So like he accepted into Fremen society, and it's
Right.
pretty interesting. And from there, without getting into spoilers, I'll tell you from there he makes a bunch of different changes and does a bunch of different awesome stuff. And anything you want to say about the character and the acting of the character here?
He is probably one of the best actors today. We saw him in Willy Wonka, and you got Johnny Depp and Gene
Hackman. No, Gene Wilder.
No, Gene Wilder that played the part before him. They are great actors, and he comes in, and I thought, in many ways, he did a better job than they did. He's so versatile. I mean, he sings. I mean, I just kind of wondered, how's he going to do in this movie? He knocked it out of the park. I mean, really, he's just gifted as an actor. And in this movie, I mean, he played the part. I mean, I didn't see any weaknesses at all in his character, his abilities. I thought he played it well. He seems like he's been an actor longer than he has been. I mean, he seems like an actor that's maybe 20 more years down the road experience. I mean, he's just very he just as far as the other actors are great, but I mean, he still was 100 meters in front of them. If you won a race, he was just that far ahead of them with his acting abilities and stuff. So, very, very. I like him as an actor. Be interesting what other movies he'll come out in.
Yeah, that's actually I think that he's a really great. Maybe he is the actual real life Muad'Dib of acting. That's the.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he is. Yeah.
That's what it is. This is life. What art imitating life.
He said that his heroes. Where I was looking at his heroes, Joaquin Phoenix and Leonardo DiCaprio. How do you say his name?
Leonardo
DiCaprio. Yeah, and I thought, you know what? He is a very similar actor to those two. They're really good actors too. So I thought, wow, he is just there. He acts like the people he admires. He's that good. Yeah. So.
Well, and so as far as and I agree with you. I think that one last note to also say, and it's not written here in my notes, but just it's cool. You mentioned did he improve? You asked about did people improve in one of our last movies, and I just kind of thinking. So I don't think the acting necessarily improved because really he is a really great actor. You can't really go, but I will say it was very interesting to see. It's kind of subdued. They don't really make a big deal about it, but you do see how he goes from being I'm just interested in fighting the Harkonnens because they killed my family, and then the character kind of progresses to. I'm the one. I have to be the one because I'm the only one that can do this, and I have to basically take up this great saving the Fremen people and becoming the Messiah here a little bit. The only thing that I will say is that he kind of plays as an anti-Jesus. He actually is portrayed as a Messiah character like Jesus, but when I say anti-Jesus, I don't mean that he is the opposite of what Jesus is.
Right.
In the way, the Christian faith, Jesus is the good. I'm not saying that he's evil or anything, but Jesus, for the longest time, in the Christian faith, the Jews believed that the Messiah was going to come and overthrow the Romans, and they were going to have basically rule the earth and with God for whatever. Yeah. Okay, this guy, Jesus said, no, I'm not here for that. I'm here to save people's souls. Okay. And my kingdom will be in people's, as a religion in people's souls. This guy comes in and he's like, nope, I'm not here for people's souls. I'm going to kill the Harkonnens. I'm going to take over this world.
Right.
And so that's what I mean. Like, he plays as an anti-Jesus, as a Messiah character. So he is here in the literal sense of what people tend to think of a Messiah as being in. He's going to come and actually physically save people from a threat. Yeah. He also, in the books and in the original movie, they get into it more about how he is like a spiritual Messiah as well. But they don't get too much into that here, and I think that's fine. Yeah. That's like the last big thing I have about his character, though. So
right.
We can move on to Zendaya's character.
Definitely an A+ actor. I mean,
yeah. So then moving on to Chani. So Chani, played by Zendaya. There's kind of a thing. So first of all, she doesn't accept that she doesn't believe in the prophecy, and she doesn't believe that. She doesn't know if she believes in the prophecy, but she says a couple times in the movie, like, if there is going to be a Messiah, it will be a Fremen. It will not be someone from another world. But she's kind of won over by Paul personally, in that they bond and turn into a romance. And then later she kind of, basically she does not, it goes from not believing to not accepting that he is the Messiah.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah. And so there's some interesting, like I said, a romance and then some conflicts, and they don't really not everything gets resolved in the movie. And so it kind of makes you interested in maybe what's going to happen next. Yeah. I mean, what did you think of the character?
I kind of like that she's a hard person in the movie, and very doubtful, very unbelieving, and with her interaction with Paul, there seems to be a change that's starting, but she still has that rough, like, tough girl image in the movie that she is. She portrays well. I thought she portrayed it well. I thought she did a good job. For playing her part and for her disbelief and her denial, I mean, she did a good job all the way through. It'll be interesting how she does in the next movie. I think they played her, as far as time wise, and the same with Timothy, it was perfect. I think it was really, well done what she did. But yeah, she's a good actor. She's got room to improve. I mean, she really does, but she does. She's a good actor. I will not say she's a good actress. I will not say she's, lacking anything except probably experience. She's just not been in movies that much as others.
Because she's so young, yeah.
And she was a singer too for a while. So I mean, she's making that transition too. But she did a good job.
I said this. I will say that I said this about her in something else. What did I see her in? And we talked about. I think it was a trailer. I talked about how, look, I really like Zendaya. I think she's a solid actress. Okay, but basically, I don't. She gets super overhyped because she's been in some good stuff. I think that she's a solid actress, but I don't think that she's like, oh, this amazing super actress. Like, she was in Euphoria, which is a super popular TV show. I never watched it. It's not my thing, but I checked it out a little bit, but I was like, this isn't for me. But it's a very popular show, so she's super hyped as far as
right.
In the Spider-Man movies, and those people liked those. I had some problems with some of them, and so that's super. She gets super hyped for that. But I basically think that a lot of her characters, not that she's like a character actor necessarily, but she brings, like, a lot of the characters that she's been in, that she's had to play, have been very similar. And that, like you see in Spider-Man, she plays like a rougher, Skeptical. There you go.
Right.
Skeptical type of character. And then in
Skeptical,
Euphoria, so in Euphoria, she plays a drug addict who's kind of very deadpan because she's always high all the time, and she's like sad with life, so she's a little bit skeptical, a little bit of a rougher character. And then it's interesting that you say here, because I agree with you, she plays kind of like a rougher character, but at the same time, she does show some softness. She's kind of like, it's like one of those characters that has a person that they can be with, but then they're not, they don't seem like the type of people to be compatible with other people to be even friends with, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We know people like that are just kind of, when you initially meet them, it's kind of like trying to touch and feel a cactus.
Yeah.
But after a while, their personality comes out. They're that rough exterior. But that's a good point, that she does play a similar parts in other movies. It'd be interesting to see if she plays in something different. How, not the rough girl, but like the happy perky girl. How she would do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think just being able to see that range would exemplify how, like, so it's like Adam Sandler has always been this goofy, stupid character, and then Uncut Gems, and Punch Drunk Love, and now that new astronaut movie that I got to watch, and so you see, like, man, forget it. Adam Sandler is a great actor. Like, forget it. He can really do it. Okay, so I want to see the same thing from Zendaya. I think that she needs to be challenged a little bit for me to make it definitive. Like, she's going to go down in the annals of history as this great, But again, solid. I don't want to get into spoilers, but the conflicts that she has are basically with Paul and the relationship with Paul, and I think she does a good job, and it's an interesting story. Okay, so then moving on to the next character. Now, so this next character is the most influential to the story here. And this next character is actually two characters. And you'll know what I mean, I think, as soon as I say it. So, Lady Jessica Atreides, played by Rebecca Ferguson. So, in this movie, her big thing is that she becomes a Reverend Mother, following the story of the original movie way back in the 70s, and also, was it the 70s or 80s? We said it earlier, but the original movie...
80s.
Yeah, by David Lynch. Yeah. And then so she drinks the water of life, which is this special water, this magical substance, and we'll get into where it comes from and everything in the miscellaneous section. But she drinks this water of life. The big thing about the water of life is that if you drink it, there's a great chance that you'll die. And it's actually 100% chance that you'll die, and then there's a great chance that you're not going to come back after the death. But if you're the right type of person, if you basically pass the test, you're going to come back to life, and it kind of empowers you with certain things as far as from the spice and all this stuff. It doesn't get too much into it here, but there is stuff that it got into in the book and the original movie. The big thing about her, though, is that she's pregnant. Another big thing about her is that she's pregnant, and because she takes the water of life, her daughter within her womb is empowered by the water of life, and her daughter throughout the movie actually counsels her, and you don't see her being talked to, but she says, like, your sister says this, she says this. Okay? So that's why I said it's two characters, and apparently the sister within her womb is like super psychic powered, and it's not made exactly clear, but but she has some kind of power. She believes that Paul is the prophesied savior. Now on Arrakis they call it something that honestly I can't pronounce because I can't remember how they pronounce it, but the Hizat Kazarat, which is what the Bene Gesserit call this prophesied savior of the universe. So she believes that Paul is this prophesied savior. She uses her influence as a Reverend Mother to get the Fremen to also start to believe that he is this savior, and kind of so there's a little bit of playing a game of political power here, more present. Like that was so. This is basically like something, if you thought made a modern retelling of, or sorry, like a modern comparison, I would say that the basis for the entire Dune series is like what the Game of Thrones. And when I say Game of Thrones, I mean the actual Game of Thrones, like where you're playing as a player in the Game of Thrones, which is where the title of the series Game of Thrones comes from, because a character at one point in the books of the Game of Thrones says, we're playing the Game of Thrones. So the Game of Thrones is what this is. So just like the series Game of Thrones, these people are playing the Game of Thrones. You don't get a lot of that in any of the movies. We haven't gotten a huge amount of that as far as like people doing particular political intrigue, except for how the Harkonnens attack the Atreides in the first movie, and and then here with Lady Jessica trying to influence the Fremen into like getting behind Paul here, which is interesting because if you've seen Game of Thrones, it's almost like how Jon Snow becomes kind of the king in the north. Well, Paul Atreides, he becomes the king in the south, sort of. Not a king, but he becomes like this great leader of the Fremen.
Right.
So, yeah. So what did you think about her character and how her arc goes? What are your thoughts?
I thought she did a good job. I mean, she's kind of. I mean, she's interesting. She's got, she's got like the spiritual insight in the movie, which is interesting because she's, I think she knows where her son's supposed to be at, and she's kind of trying to bring that about in some ways in her own power, maybe. With like a political type influence, which I thought was interesting. But I don't, as much as she's in the movie, she doesn't stand out as like a major actress to me. But
right.
I mean, she played her part well, and she played. I guess it was the same with the previous movie. She did the same thing. She, kind of had she's one of the, she's one of the top actors, but she's not. Her part isn't, over the top or anything like that. But we learned a lot more about her character, in this movie and how I think her role expands. Might be a good way of saying it, but and she's a good actress. I'm no doubt about that. I mean, she's really good, and I thought she did a good job. And I think she's one of those people who can play in different types of movies and stuff like that. She's not just one horse pony.
Yeah. So something that I will say about when talking about this is because if we kind of clump her together as two characters with the daughter, we never actually see because she's in the womb. I think that they actually made. I wouldn't say so. So once you look at the movie in its totality, I'll pass judgment on it, but I will. Okay, on that at the end. And I'll say that at least it was good, and then we'll get into my final review score later. I don't think that it was a huge mistake because once you see it in totality, but I think that they made a mistake in that, at least, I don't know how it happened in the books, but at least in the first movie, the daughter is born in the movie before, like where the story goes, the end of this story, the daughter is born before that in the original movie with David Lynch.
Right.
Made by David Lynch. But here, we don't see her in this movie. And I think that there might have been, I don't know what happened with it. It might have been cut content or something, because Anya Taylor-Joy is in this movie. And she comes to, this is not a spoiler, but she comes to Paul in a vision. And she is Paul's sister. And she talks to Paul. And she's in the movie for like a second. But Anya Taylor-Joy is a good actress. I can't imagine. I don't know how much money they had to pay her to be in this movie, but then she's not in the movie. So I was like, what? You see what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
she was in for a short scene,
Yeah, and so it made me like Anya Taylor-Joy. They could not have thought that taking Anya Taylor-Joy and putting her in. I believe that probably she's in scenes. Like the daughter may have been born in an extended cut or something, and Anya Taylor-Joy plays the daughter in the movie.
Yeah.
In cut scenes or something. That was really weird for me. I don't know. Yeah, and I think that they probably should have had the daughter be born, because at least in the original movie, I don't know how it happens in the books, but in the original movie, she plays a kind of an important part in how the story unfolds and the resolution of the story. So I was like, I don't necessarily, I wouldn't count it as a negative necessarily, but it was a missed opportunity that they had. Is my point.
Right.
Yeah. But we won't know. We won't know unless the DVD comes out and they have deleted scenes. So, but the movie was quite long, so I could definitely understand them cutting out certain scenes and things like that, and dialogue and you know.
Yeah, for sure. It was a long movie.
So okay. So then moving on, we have like 3 actually kind of minor characters. I will say that that most of this movie is sucked up in Paul's personal conflicts within himself, actually. So all of these characters, like you're saying, Zendaya and Shawnee, that has to do with Paul's personal stuff. And then even Lady Atreides here, Jessica Atreides, and all these other characters we're about to get into, they're there and they're important to the story, but really it's all really about Paul's own personal stuff. So we have Javier Bardem plays the character of Stilgar, and he basically, Stilgar's whole thing here is that he is like in love with Paul, not romantically. He is in love with the idea of Paul. He's like, Paul is for sure the prophesied savior. He plays almost like a Morpheus character, less impactful than Morpheus from The Matrix, less impact, less screen time, but he still is that character who says, look, I don't care what you believe, I believe, and I'm putting all of my faith in you. Before the character, it's himself. Like, before Paul even believes anything, this guy believed, and is a great leader and a great friend to Paul. And he has a big impact because he's like the leader of the Sietch that Paul is part of. The Sietches are these communities. Yeah, and I mean, I think I know we're getting into kind of minor characters, so there's not a whole lot, but he had to be mentioned if he's going to be, if we're going to talk about top 5 characters. So I mean, what were your thoughts on Javier Bardem and Stilgar's character?
He's definitely one of the better actors in the movie. I really liked his part in, playing the person who believes that that their Messiah is going to come, and that Paul, he starts seeing throughout the movie gradually that, hey, this guy might be it. And then something happens, and he fills up with more energy. He's, look what happened. This is what they say. And the people are still doubting, but he is like focused, and he's kind of like the prophet, that proclaims, hey, this is the guy that's supposed to, John the Baptist, I think if you want to go with the Bible, hey, this is the guy right here. This is who I'm talking about. This is the one. He's a really good actor too. I thought he did a great job and stuff like that. Just the part that he played, I felt like he did well. I mean, and he wasn't the best actor in the movie, but I would think maybe might be the second best actor in the movie. That's to say a lot, but he really he squeezed all that he could have out of the part that he played, and I mean, and it was really well, yeah.
So I mean, and I agree with you. I think that, one last thing too is that as I'm sitting here listening to you talking, I'm kind of thinking to myself, he does serve as kind of an exposition, like a natural exposition, though, to kind of explain, like, this is what the people of the Fremen believe about whoever the savior is going to be. And then he is telling you, like, you can see that Paul is obviously the savior because of these different things, this Messiah, the character that they have. So, okay, then moving on, though, to Austin Butler's character, Fade Rotha. He serves as kind of the big bad guy, so I do just want to mention, I'll mention them real quick. You have the Baron Harkonnen, who did everything in the first movie, and you also have the Beast Rabban, who is Fade Rotha's brother. Those guys are kind of pushed to the side, at least not to the back, but to the side as Fade kind of comes forward here. He was originally played by Sting in the first movie by Lynch. He is crazy, and he is evil in this. He is extremely evil and extremely crazy. Like, he kills his servants and people, just like he just doesn't care about life. His role here, kind of his arc here, is that he takes control of Arrakis because Raban's failure to stop Paul and the Fremen from stop slowing down spice, and he does a couple successful attacks against the Fremen. There's a little bit of a side plot where he is manipulated by the Bene Gesserit, and that gets into how the Bene Gesserit are this secret society. Well, they're not secret, but they're the society of witches who have their own political machinations, and they're the ones who they at least believe that they are in control, and they may actually be, but they're in control behind the scenes. So when people act in front of in front of the curtain on the stage, that still happens, but they try to affect things behind the curtain. Yeah, and. Yeah, I mean, again, we don't get a huge amount of time with the character, but he definitely looks different than the actor because of all the stuff that they put on his face, and I can imagine. Again, he's heavily featured in my favorite sequence in the movie, which is on the planet Giddy Prime, which is the homeworld of the Harkonnens, and it's all black and white because of... Well, we'll get into why it's all black and white in a second.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so he's like the big bad. Any thoughts on this character?
Yeah, I had to look him up to see who actually he was in real life, and it was just amazing how they did the makeup and all that to make him into this character that the part that he played, the way it was written, the way that it was directed, you hated this guy, and I was thinking somebody's got to. I said, somebody's got to take care of him. Somebody's got to destroy him. You know, he brought that out, and I mean, he had this voice that was real, just cold and ugly. This guy was played in Disney stuff. You know, so he's like a little happy teenage guys, but man, here he is, this cold-blooded killer. He's like, his brother can't do what the Baroness, so he comes in and takes his place. But I mean, and he's cold. I mean, he's ruthless. I mean, he just has no mercy, and you see it as the movie goes along that he's even as he's not even saying anything, you can see in his eyes he's plotting.
Right.
How can I win? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good. He's a good actor. I really impressed with him. Yeah.
Yeah, and I totally agree, and I think, you definitely see a truly evil character here, and a little bit crazy as well. So, but then, so then moving on to the last character, and really the only reason I'm bringing this character up, everybody's going to know that he's in the movie because of the promotional material, but it's Christopher Walken who plays the Emperor. They don't even say his name, but he's actually Emperor Shadow. I think his first name is Shadow. What is the Emperor's name? So he.
Shaddam.
Say again.
Shaddam.
So Shaddam. That's what it is. He's like Shaddam the 15th or something. Yeah, or the 4th. There you go, the 4th. Okay, so I actually just really wanted to bring this up because I think it's important to note that he plays a small role, but he's heavily in the promotional material, and people need to know that going into this. He basically, his thing is that he is the one that secretly allowed the Atreides to be killed, and he gets involved because throughout this whole movie, the Harkonnens do not know that Paul Atreides is actually alive. They know that there's a man whose name is Muad'Dib Usul, and he is stirring a lot of things up with the Fremen. He's some kind of religious zealot because all the Fremen start to believe in this Usul, and they follow Paul Usul as they know him. And then some stuff starts to get revealed, and there's an expectation, like a suspicion of who is this Usul guy, and the Emperor gets involved because of that and how that plays out. Yeah, biggest thing that I want people to take away from this, though, is that he actually does not play a huge, impactful part. He's a great actor. He plays what parts he does. He's golden on the screen.
Yeah.
Don't expect this to be like a Christopher Walken movie. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Any feelings on that before we move on to miscellaneous section?
Yeah. He, for the minor role that he had, I mean, again, he did a fabulous job and stuff like that. And it says something about him too that usually guys like that they want some pretty big roles, but this wasn't a big role for him, but he still did it. So yeah, great job. He did a great job.
Okay. Well then, okay. So overall, I give the acting here and the characters, the way the characters are written and the acting, 2 thumbs way up. I think that these guys just overall did a really, really great job. I agree with what you're saying about Timothée Chalamet is a great actor. Probably, yeah. He's an
elite actor. I mean, he's beyond his years. I guess maybe that's what I should say. He knows his craft. I mean, there's something about people who can act and do something, but he knows how to act, but he knows how to improve on it. You know what I'm saying? He knows how to make it really shine. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then let's move into the miscellaneous section, though. So I have a couple of notes, and if there's is there anything that you really want to mention yourself, or do you just?
Okay, I don't think that's not a spoiler alert, but there's a scene when they're riding the worms in different scenes. I love that. I mean, it was like I don't know. It's like somebody riding on a whale or something on the ocean or something. But I mean, but through the sand, and it just seems so realistic, And here's these huge, bigger than a semi worms that are taking these people across the desert. And to me, that scene where he actually gets on and rides the worm.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that was just, I was like, and that talking about, them starting to recognize there's something special about this guy. I mean, the worm scenes were really good. I thought, I really liked that. And I won't give it away, but there's a fight scene that I really liked too. I thought it was well done. And, it's pretty. Those two things as miscellaneous stood out to me. I don't think there's anything else really that, except it was a long movie, and I realize that that's what Dune movies are like. But it was a long movie, and that to me, that I don't know what you can do about that. It just maybe. I'm thinking, put an intermission right in the middle of the movie. 15 minutes, people can walk out, come back in. I used to do that when I was young. But that's a minor thing. But miscellaneous, those 2 scenes, the scenes with the worms and the scenes with the fight, man, that's some good action. Good action. Those to me stood out as like really cool things. So. Besides, I don't have anything.
Well, okay, so I think that kind of piggybacking off of what you're saying, yes. So the worm riding, Paul's test where they teach him how to ride worms is so amazing. It's epic. So this is, look, everybody's going to be thinking it. This is a little bit of a spoiler. Most of the people who are going to watch this review have already seen the movie, but I'm going to tell you guys. Worm riding, okay, in this movie leads to the greatest cavalry charge you are ever going to see in any movie ever. And I mean, even me, my point is me telling you that, you are not prepared for how they frame what happens here. Oh, it is so cool. I was sitting in the movie theater. There were parts where I was sitting in the movie theater and I just got pumped up. I was like, it's so cool. Some of the stuff that they do is just so cool. How and that's what I was saying about the production and the way the directing and the acting and this and the skyboxes behind everything. It's like it's set up so perfectly. It draws you in, and you're like, I'm there. I'm riding the worms with Paul.
And there's aspects of just on that aspects of guerrilla warfare that go on in it, and you're just amazed at how they can get inside the enemy without them knowing about it. I mean, those things. I mean, that you made me think of that too. But yeah, the military tactics are, whether it's head on or it's stealth. I mean, they're pretty amazing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So when you compare this to movies like Star Wars, where Star Wars is also a sci-fi fantasy type of movie, this is more. Star Wars is a sci-fi fantasy, and it's about a war, and this is about a war, but this gets more into the war, like the war movie aspects of the movie than Star Wars does. Star Wars is you see the war happening kind of in the background, and then it's that movie is really more about the fantasy character, like the fantasy heroes fighting each other. This is like a little bit more grounded. Now, I don't mean realistic. I just mean grounded in the way that the war is actually fought. They get into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I want to mention about the world building here. So there's some interesting things that you're going to see that are just cool, like little nerdy things. You're going to go, oh, like that's so interesting and cool. So Arrakis is a planet that has like very little water, and the Fremen are always like that. Like a greeting to honor someone is when the Fremen come up to you. If they want to honor you, they spit on the ground because they give their water. They're giving their water for you, which is huge because they don't have water. So something that they do here in this one though is you see that they actually will drain water from their enemies with a special tool. Like they shoot you, let's say you're wounded and you're dying, they come up, they stab you with like this knife thing, and it drains water out of your body and will finish you off and kill you. They also do it from their own and they do it from their own dead. They show how there's like this ceremony where for people who die, they stab them with this device, or they put them in like a suit that think like a Ziploc bag for humans, and the suit sucks out the water from their body. Yeah, and then when they take that and they take that water, and that water is like, think like your ashes, and they honor the water. So that's kind of a cool thing. You know what it reminded me of is if you've ever seen the second Blade movie. Yeah, Blade 2, they show like a farm where they have people who are they have homeless people. The vampires have homeless people, and they're hooked up to life support, and they're hanging in a Ziploc bag where they're draining the blood out. It's like that. It's like that bag that they use. We get some more world building with the Fremen society, and so I specifically remember from the original movie they actually talk about numbers, how they have like, we have 10,000 sieges with 10,000 people each, or 1,000 sieges with 10,000 people each. Like there are a lot of Fremen, and you look out in the desert, and all you see is all these it's called Dune. All you see is these dunes, but actually that's a hugely greatly populated planet full of these Fremen, because they know how to live out in the desert, and it talks about that. It talks about their sieges, which are their communities that they live in mountainous, rocky areas underground. It also explained to us, and this was not mentioned in the original movie. I'm sure that it was mentioned in the books, but I didn't read the books, so I'm only referencing the original movie. Is how the southern pole of Arrakis is actually protected by a perpetual storm, and the Harkonnens don't go there. Like nobody from off-world goes there because it's considered to be uninhabitable, but actually the Fremen live there. And so we get some interesting world building. I thought that was good. That was cool. Just interrupt me if you have anything you want to comment on anything.
Oh, no, I agree with you. Keep going. That's great stuff.
So something else is my favorite sequence is Giddy Prime, which is another planet. So we get to see the Harkonnens' homeworld, and it's all grayed out. And they explain very quickly, but they explain how it's grayed out like that because there's a problem with the Harkonnens' sun. And I think that I read somewhere something, it's like the reason that the Harkonnens have a problem with their sun is because of something that they did to the sun with some technology. But actually, that is not an artistic choice. The director did not make Giddy Prime grayed out because to make it interesting. It's grayed out because the sun is messed up, and if you were actually going to walk around on the planet, everything would look gray. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
We see how, like, the Fremen have... The architecture of the Fremen is very... basically, like, almost Middle Eastern. Okay, as far
Yes,
as
yeah.
even on Arrakis, like I'm talking about, even the Harkonnen buildings, like the buildings that were built on Arrakis are all like Middle Eastern, and then the Fremen live in caves and stuff. But then you looked at the Atreides architecture from the first movie, and it was all kind of like regal, and you'd imagine it as being like a knight or something,
Yes.
or lords. Okay. And then you look at the Emperor, and the Emperor has like these giant, excessively giant ships, and you go, okay, well, this is somebody really powerful. On Gilly Prime, the way that I would describe, they show a Colosseum and they show some other buildings. I would describe it as basically just being big and evil. Like all the architecture, you look at it and you're like, I'm sure that whoever built this is evil. Yeah.
Right. There's no color. I mean, there's no life. I mean, it looks dead.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, in all of the scenes, the way it's framed, like on Arrakis, they always have the dunes in the background, and then when you're in the buildings, it's always like caves and stuff, so you get a different feeling. Whenever you see Giddy Prime, on Giddy Prime, they always have these, most of the time they're inside or they're in this Colosseum, and you look in the background and it's all just giant and oppressive. Like the architecture just makes you, you'd almost be like afraid walking around in some of these buildings.
Right.
We kind of got into it a little bit earlier. They talked about the water of life. It comes from baby worms. So you actually see these baby worms. And that was pretty interesting. But basically, the big thing to note about the water of life, we already talked about, if you drink it, you die. And then if you're a Bene Gesserit witch, the Bene Gesserit witches drink it as a test. If they survive the test, they get certain more powers. Any man who drinks it will die. They explicitly say that. That's important. I'm not going to spoil anything, but they explicitly say that. But being able to see the little worms, because like these worms are giant. They're not. You said bigger than a bus. They're bigger than a bus. They're bigger than a train. They're about the size of a skyscraper. They're thousands. Some of them get up to be hundreds of meters long.
Like a locomotive. With all the trains behind, all the cars behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, these things are massive. They're like the size of skyscrapers. But it's cool because you get to see one that is like that big around. It's probably about 8 feet long, but it's like that big around. And so then my next point, miscellaneous point here, is Gurney Halleck is in the movie halfway through. He doesn't die in the first one, so this isn't really. They explain what happened to him. He gets reunited with Paul, and after a little while of things going on, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do about the Harkonnens, he kind of says to Paul, "Hey, look, I have this secret that I want to give you, and it's a weapon against the Harkonnens, and I don't want to spoil it. But he basically starts helping Paul, and then he gives Paul this secret weapon.
That's right.
Yeah. One thing. Before I get into my last points, let me just. I'm going to show you guys something. So, speaking of the baby worms, I have my own worm here. So, as you guys can see, it looks exactly like what people were making fun of it for looking like. I'll just be honest here. It looks like a butthole. That's what everybody said. But this is my Dune bucket. So, this is exactly what a worm looks like. So if you go to the theater, you can get this limited edition Dune bucket. I'm sure Dune is still playing at theaters, so they're probably gonna have this for a
They didn't have those at my theater, so I don't know if it's a certain theater. No, they had buckets, but they didn't have the top on it.
Yeah, so this was totally.
Mine's independent. Mine's independent. So, is that what you go AMC, or did you go to like a Regal or something?
AMC.
Yeah.
So, did you go to an AMC?
No. I went. The one I get to is independent.
Oh, okay. So,
but they didn't have buckets.
Oh, go on.
Yeah, they had it on the buckets, but not the top.
Right. So the greatest thing about this is that if you flip it upside down, the little teeth here, I forget what they're called, but they're like whale teeth. Like whale teeth are actually made of like little hairs. Down, it holds the popcorn in. But people were making fun of this. I think it looks awesome. I mean, it still looks awesome, but it does look like what people were making fun of it for. But
it's like the worm. I mean, seriously, it looks like the worm. I know people are just, they go south on stuff like that, but it looks like the worm. The worm in the movie. Yeah.
So this is pretty cool. Actually, let me see. For the rest of the review, I'll put it right here. So you guys can
You
see
know,
that's
you
my
can eat
point.
some popcorn if you want, if you have some in it.
Yeah. Oh no, there's no popcorn in there. My kids ate it all. Yeah. So getting into my last few points here, that they all kind of blend together too. So we're winding down now. I know that this has been going on for a long time. So the movie, along with our review of it, this review of it is too long. It's too long. So the first was 2 hours and 35 minutes, and I sat there in the first one, and every step of the way just kept building and building and building and building, and I never felt like, hey, I've been sitting in a theater for a long time. I thought it went by really quickly, actually. This one was only 10 minutes longer, at 2 hours and 46 minutes, but at about, I don't know, maybe halfway through, I started to feel like everything was good, but at the same time, I was like, man, it feels like it's getting long. And I'll tell you why I think that happened. I take timestamps, so I write down when the movie starts in my notes, and then as things are happening, I'm writing down when it's happening, and it's like every 5 minutes something happens, something new. We're in a new sequence of a different thing happening. Yeah. And so there was like a lot of different things that were happening. In the first movie, it was like one thing would happen for like 20 minutes. Does that make sense? Like you had the fight scene, like the Harkonnens attack the Atreides. That goes on for like 30, maybe 20 minutes, and it was just a long sequence, and you get sucked into it, and it doesn't feel like it's a long time happening. Right. This was like a bunch of short sequences of many things happening, and it made it feel longer. I think that was I think that the problem with this was go on.
No, I think there was a part where you felt like you were going through the desert and you're starting to dry out a little bit in the movie. I think I know what part. I think around the middle there was a part where it's like you start looking at your watch and going, "Well, how long is this?" That's what I did. Yeah. And my wife said something to me too, and it's like, "Yeah," I go, "I think it's a long movie," and I didn't realize it was that long. I'm like, "Wow, it's a long movie."
So I'll tell you, they've always
that was a dry spot. I would say there was a dry spot in the middle part of the movie that they could have worked a little bit better, probably.
Yeah. So I'll tell you the problem that I'm seeing and the way that I would interpret this is that the first movie told about a third of the story. And I know that the first movie takes up about half of the book, but what you have to realize is that includes in the book they talk a lot about the politics and they get into a lot of lore. So that took up more time. But I'm saying is, as far as the actual functional story of what people want to see in the movies, it took up about a third of the movie of the story. And then now the second movie is taking up about 2/3 of the movie. My point about this is that they've always talked about how this was going to be a three movies, okay? And hey, first movie tells the first third, so why are you having the second movie tell the second 2/3 when you really should have just split it in half? I think that this part should have been split into two different movies, and then they wouldn't have, because there were things that were cut, and they could have included some of those things. Talked about some of those things. I thought that this movie, going into it, I thought that this was going to be more about the fighting with the Harkonnens to slow down spice production, and more battles like that, more things like that. And I think that if they would have cut this movie, kept it the same length, but just only cut it off at a certain point and then waited for another movie, I think that they lost an opportunity to do that. I still think the movie was good, but this really is an issue, is that this movie's too long. The other thing is that Denis Villeneuve now has come out and said that he's not going to do the third movie right away. So they're not making the third movie right now. He wants to come back and do a movie of what happens next. And we're going to talk, and my next point is that it kind of ends on a cliffhanger, and it leaves you the question like, oh, is there going to be another movie in the end? And he's saying that there will be, but not for a few years. He's not going to start working on it for a few years because he wants to work on other projects. And my thing is like, well, why didn't you just do the 3 movies now? You had an opportunity to create a great trilogy, and instead you did 2 movies. I was like, I think it would have been better as a trilogy. I hope that people who see the movie are going to understand that. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. What you think of it? Should this have been cut? Should this have been a second movie waiting for the third movie? Yeah. They almost did that with Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings was going to be 2 movies, and then the producer said, but there's 3 books, so make 3 movies. I think they should have made 3 movies here. Things were cut that. So, and then things were cut that could have been explained that. So the spacing guilds, The whole reason that they need spice is because of the spacing guilds. Spice is a substance that gives basically people magic powers, and using those magic powers is how they travel in space.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
Spacing guilds and space is not included at all in this movie. There's a connection between the worms and the spice that is brought up in the first original movie with David Lynch that they didn't have here at all. Right. Somebody mentioned to me after they knew that I heard that I saw the movie, they hadn't seen it. They asked me, what about the computer guy, the Mentat? So the Mentat is the guy from the first movie who he rolls his eyes back in his head and he does computer calculations. He's not in this movie at all. We don't know what happened to him.
Right.
Yeah, we don't know what happened to a couple of people. No, we know what happened to the doctor, but we don't know what happened to that Mentat guy. He was mentioned in the first original movie with David Lynch. My point is that the movie with David Lynch was, I want to say, I think it was like 2.5 hours long, and it felt like maybe it was rushed, maybe it wasn't done as well, but it did cover certain things that were cut from this. Yeah, and then my last point is that no post-credit scene. So you don't have to stay through the credits if you're going to see it in the theater.
Yeah, I just figured there wasn't one on it, so I didn't stick around.
Yeah, but they do set it up for another movie. It literally ends. The movie literally ends on a line of Paul saying, "Let's take these." He basically declares war on some other people that get involved at the end, and I imagine the next movie is going to be what happens with that war. I know what happens in the books. I won't spoil it for you as far as telling you what happens in the books, but yeah, so that happens here.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know this review's been going on for a long time, so if you want to, let's go into our final statement and review scores. The Action Pack needs you. You can support Mike's After Action Reviews on our Patreon for as little as $3 a month. Every quarter, once we've made at least $200, we're going to be giving away 10% of our earnings from Patreon in a giveaway over on our Twitch, so go check that out as well. You can find all of the links for everything in the description and in the pinned comment down below. Do your part. Support the pack. The Action Pack. If you could give me even just one sustain, one improve, and then bad, below average, average, above average, or excellent. So,
I say the sustain is to keep the same actors. I thought they had a really good cast of actors. The one improve is if you're going to have a long movie, you don't need to have that. There was a lag in the middle of the movie, which I think they could have done better. Well, I think we've talked about that. That would be my one improve. So scores at 5 to 1, right? Above, excellent, above average, average, below average, and then
bad. Yeah.
Bad. I'd say it was above average. I wouldn't say it was excellent, but it was above average. But I would say maybe like with a plus, above average plus. There were some things. I mean, there were some things they probably could have improved on in the. I think that the drag in the middle of the movie kind of. You felt the same thing I did, and my wife felt. And it was like that was probably. They probably could have fixed that a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard. What do you gotta look? What do you keep? What do you throw away? You know, what do you use? What do you not use? I mean, it can be hard, but it was above average movie. I mean, I thought it was a really good movie, not excellent, but very, very good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to agree with you almost completely and kind of mimic you when I say my improves and sustains, because basically my improve, I'll start with my improve, is I'll just say, yeah, they missed an opportunity of making this a trilogy. Sort of like I said with Lord of the Rings. And I'll just say, to answer your question a little bit in my own kind of monologue here is, the original movie with David Lynch covers things that this movie doesn't cover and includes them, but covers everything that this movie, almost everything that this movie covers, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, when you say, like, what do you keep, I mean, you could have kept a lot of what... I don't think they should have cut anything from the original movies. And then if they would have made this a trilogy, they could have included all of the things that they also included without cutting anything. So for me, big improve is don't studios, please, if you're watching this, if you work for a movie studio, listen to me. Listen to me. Never give up the opportunity to make, a movie trilogy that's going to be one of the best. This could have been, I think they missed out on an opportunity to make the sci-fi version of The Lord of the Rings. Okay?
Yeah.
My sustain is just the production value. I don't think that you could have done this. Like, that includes, like, paying for good actors, good CGI, but, like, a great director. I don't think that you could have made this for cheaper and done it justice. So the great production value here, you need to understand that when you make, this is an epic, and it needed to be filmed like an epic. It needed to be produced like an epic. And so, yeah, I would definitely, if they make another one, I would watch it again if they did it again in the same way.
Yeah. They brought the A team. They brought the A team for sure.
Yeah. So moving into my final statement of review score, I want to say, look, we've kind of talked about it. Movie was too long. I was disappointed, even to the point of being like very disappointed just because of the missed opportunity to do certain things. Like, it is because it's a small thing. It's a small thing. Like you're saying, there was a little bit of a drag in the middle. That's a small thing and probably had an easy fix. I don't make movies, but I think that probably they could have made just a little bit of changes and corrected that issue. Biggest change, like I said, making it 3 movies instead of 2. But even if you were going to do 2 movies, you could have made it. Because, again, the original movie covered everything, the entire story in one movie, and there was no drag in the original movie. The original movie, was, we got stuff to do, let's go, and they still made it. I think that they did a good job with the original movie with David Lynch. But anyway, and so I wasn't just disappointed, I was highly disappointed, but only because it was so small of a fix. I've seen it done before, and also the movie's so good. So, saying all of that, I'm gonna give it the same rating, above average, and just like you said, above average plus. So I'm gonna say like a high above average, not quite excellent. The first one was excellent, and I bought the DVD for the first one. I'm gonna buy the DVD for this one too, but the only reason I'm gonna buy the DVD for this one is because of how good the first one was, and that I own the first one as well. It's one of those movies where if they made a third movie in the series that takes all the same people and everything, and they make it complete the trilogy, doing whatever they're going to do, I would tell people that it's like, I need to watch the first one. I need to watch, probably if the third one is good too, I want to watch the third one to see the ending. But the middle one is a little bit of a sag in the middle. Not bad. Yeah. I mean, a sag in the middle from excellent is above average plus, so what are you going to do? I mean, it was a good movie. It was just disappointing that they missed out on the opportunity to make it excellent.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Look it, guys. The movie was really long. Our review was really long. If you're watching this, I want to thank you all for watching to the end. Other Mike, if you want to say goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye, everybody, and we'll see you at the movies.
Yeah. And make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, do all this stuff. Really, comment down below. Let me know, because I know the Dune fans, there's a lot of Dune fans. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. But that's all we've got today, guys. From the bottom of our hearts here at Mike's After Action Reviews from everybody here at Mike's After Action Reviews, we just want to say thank you all for watching. God bless you all, and have a good day. Don't forget to check me out on Twitch and join the Discord, where you can voice chat with me while I live stream, and you won't be recorded or anything on YouTube and Twitch, so that's pretty cool. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram. If you like to read, you can see my after action reports on my blog. And if you are interested, you can get some merch from my spring store. The links for everything are in the description below.